Good afternoon, everyone. I hope all of you are well and safe wherever you are. My name is Nazir Aval. I'm the CEO and founder at Resemble Systems. This is a tough time, and we understand the challenges all of us are facing due to COVID-19 pandemic. So today's session is about Agile Scrum application development methodology. And before I really introduce our speaker, I'd like to welcome all of you to this session and thank you for joining us. See, Agile Scrum development methodology, that's something Resemble Systems as the valued partner for you has been following for some time. And we have decided that why don't we extend the knowledge and the way we use this methodology internally with our customers as well, so that as we go forward with the projects, with the application development projects, we actually aligned, we decided to put forward this webinar. It's a 45 minutes webinar, and then we'll also get into Q&A session. So today's speaker is Rahul Mohan, our head of application development. I'm going to walk you through the Scrum methodology, and many of you would have attended many such agile sessions in the past. I think what is differentiating here, Rahul, is also walk you through some of the use cases and the live demo. I also like to encourage all of you to make it interactive. If there is any question on each of those slides, I would suggest that you please raise your hand, and I'll be around. My colleague Ravina also around as the moderator. So if you have any question on any slide, please raise your hand and then make it interactive. Yeah. So with that, I leave the floor to Rahul to get started. So Rahul,
yes,
over to you.
Yes, thanks Nazir for the introduction. The agenda for today's session is to introduce you into the Agile Scrum concept. So I know still we are going to explain about the concept. So I try to make it very interactive in terms of some demo sessions, so you get clear picture about what is the Agile Scrum. And also we mainly focus about what's the characteristics and the approach, how we're going to do. And also a small brief about how you can build your Scrum team. And also at the end, we can have a use case demo. So I'll be using a Microsoft project to create a use case on Agile Scrum. And also at the end, we can have a QA session. And also if you have any questions in between, you can provide through the chat, or you can just ask at any time, towards the end of the call. So before going in detail, so let us give, or let me try to explain what is a Scrum. Okay, so Scrum is a process by which, is an agile process by which we try to deliver some business value within a short span of time. Okay, so your business team or the business requirement will have an objective, and I try to deliver that in a small part of time. Okay, I try to divide them into various parts and try to deliver it in a very short span of time. Okay, and also it's a rapid and repeatedly evolving solution. Okay, so that is the other part. So it mainly takes 1 week to 1 month to come up with some functional module or some functional application. So I'll give you more details on upcoming slides, how it is being achieved. And you can see the last point, it enables business to set the priorities. So we are going to create some user stories or some requirements, and business will be able to provide the priorities on what should be executed first. So they get the most relevant requirement at very first point of time. So that's one of the advantages. So this is, in a brief, I can explain the Scrum in these 3 ways, or in these 3 points. So now I'm going to explain about the characteristics of a Scrum team or the Agile Scrum team. So we are going to have the self-organizing teams. So a Scrum team is a set of 5 to 8 people or 5 to 6 people with a self-organizing nature. So the communication, there is not much communication barrier. People have daily meetings. So it's kind of self-organizing team, and the product progress will be executed in 1 to 4 week sprint. So I will explain about sprint later. So what it does means is I will have some module developed, or I can task rolling out some features within 1 to 4 weeks of time frame. So there is no need for me to wait for complete 5 or 6 months to completely roll out the project. Instead, I can roll out the application based on business priority. Okay, and also the requirements are captured from a product backlog. So product backlog, I would consider it as a small bag where business can provide their requirement or their concept. So it gets piled up. Okay, and from that I pick up what should be executed as high priority. So the fourth point is, so I use generative rules. So based on how my execution happens for 2 to 3 weeks, I will be able to set a velocity for my team. Okay, what can be delivered within this time frame. So I can understand from an application manager or a technical manager or from a CI point of view, we can understand the velocity of the team, what they are capable of handling within 4 weeks or 2 weeks. Based on that, I can set the goals for my project owner or for the business. So the business are more confident with the team. So these are the main characteristics. So now let us explain about where this Scrum, Agile Scrum can be used. So I can use it for a product development. So if you are planning for any product development, I can use it there. I can use it for fixed bid projects. So I can use it for financial applications, e-commerce portal. So if I look, the most important part based on our attendees is like, I can use it for in-house based development. Okay, so if I'm having an in-house team, so I can use the application or the Scrum method there. And if you have any RPA initiatives, I can try to deliver the application in a Scrum approach. So even the RPA vendors or the product companies, they recommend to go with Scrum methodology to deliver the projects, which is more beneficial. So now let us speak about the advantages of the Scrum compared to our traditional method or the traditional process. So if you look into the first part, many companies, they focus on process and tools in terms of execution methodology, and the Scrum team or the Scrum approach mainly focus on individuals and their interactions. So the individuals, it can be the team members, the developers, it can be the business owners from the key stakeholders. So the interaction is more. Then we are talking about a working software with a small time span. Rather than going completely documenting a process, we need something which is actually working. Then we can talk about the contract. People talk about contract negotiation but rather than, we are not looking about how collaborative or how good softwares we get. So that's the another part. Then the last part is the most important. Rather than following a plan, so I have a plan for 6 months, and I do not know what happens within these 6 months. If you create a plan to roll out an application, anything can happen. Maybe after 2 weeks, business says, okay, I need these changes, or I need to do something like this. So we should be in a position to respond to those changes rather than following a big plan, and at the end, it's something else. We develop something else. Okay, so these are the major advantages if you're going along with the Scrum. And I believe you have come through all this feature on all this part when you are executing some projects. So next we are talking about the application approach or the sprint approach. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, a Scrum is executed in a sprint. A sprint is nothing but a small amount of time between 2 to 4 weeks, so that I can decide what should be my sprint time based on the complexity of the application. And what I'm going to do is, what can I deliver? Some meaningful features I can deliver within this 2 to 4 weeks time frame to the business. So that is a sprint. So if you look into this, I'll just go to the next part. So here what happens is, you have a product catalog or product backlog which has all the features or all the requirement from the business. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to execute all this in a sprint. So I will have a sprint goal, what should be achieved, and I will provide what are features I want. So let me give you an example. So I have a leave request application. Okay, and the leave request application, the project or the business told, or the HR department told, okay, I need a project or I need a leave request application, and he's giving me the requirements. He's telling, okay, any user should be able to log in from internal or external. He should be able to log in from mobile. Then he's telling, okay, there should be a form where I can submit. Then he might be telling, okay, I should be able to show what are my remaining leaves. So he might be giving all those features. So I can provide or put those inside my product backlog. It can be doable or it cannot be some concept or it's not doable. But whatever it is, I'll put that under the product backlog. And based on that, I can pick some features as part of the execution. So you can see the sprint backlog. So there I will put my actual requirements or actual features what I can execute. Okay, through an iterative manner. So I may go with, okay, I need a login screen for the leave request. I need a form to apply for the leave. I need a mobile application. So that will be my deliverables in sprint 1. And I may deliver that with 4 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks. And I can roll that for the users. And in the next sprint, I can look into some other features. So I'll show you this during the demo part, how it's been created. So to explain more, this is the definition of sprint. So any Scrum based projects are executed in sprints. So you can see the first line what it's mentioned. Scrum project makes progress in a series of sprints. So what I'm actually doing is, if I have a project for 6 months or if I have a delivery for 6 months, I will convert that into small sprints, sprint 1, sprint 2, which has its own deliverable or with its own priority for the business, so that they can roll out that feature maybe within 1 or 2 months. And typical duration for a sprint is 2 to 4 weeks that I can design based on my complexity. And I can have a constant duration. So constant duration is nothing but I can tell to my business or the key stakeholders, okay, the first 5 set of features will be released in 2 weeks. Next will be another 2 weeks. So even the business also gets the confidence in the Scrum team. Okay, we are going to get something within mentioned or a constant time frame. So that follows as a rhythm. Okay, and product is designed, coded, and tested during the sprint. So this is the key part. So to explain that, I'll come to the next slide. So here what happens is, so normally if you're from an application development background, so normally what we do is, I take first the requirements, then I start designing, then I go with the coding and testing part. So I be following a schedule for this to execute this in maybe coming 6 months. 2 months for the requirement, another 3 months for design, or another 1 month for design, 3 months for coding. So what I'm doing is, I'm doing as a waterfall methodology, and at the end, if there is any changes or if something happens at the end, the application should be rewritten again, or it can be cancelled. So instead of that, what happens is, I'm dividing this into sprints, and for each sprint I will be doing the same process again. For example, I have sprint 1 to create a login screen, and to create a leave request form, to submit the form, and it should go give an email notification to the manager. So that is my execution for sprint 1. And the Scrum team will do this small thing within that sprint 1. For example, for that also there will be a requirement session. You do the design, you do the code, and you do the testing within that 2 weeks. So what I am doing is I'm going to roll out something more mature within that time frame by following this practice, rather than doing all the testing or all the designing part at one point of time. So I hope you got this part. Now, so I will just go a little fast to go with the demo session also. So
Rahul, maybe you could pause at one of these slides and then ask for or pause for any questions they may have.
Yes, yes.
No questions. Yes, you move forward.
Yes, that's better.
Okay.
Yes. So what I will do is I will just pause here. So if you have any questions on whatever we have discussed previously, you are free to type it on the QA, or you can ask. Okay. So if you do not have,
it's quite clear because it was too basic information. So I think you move forward. Yeah.
So let us know.
Usman, 1 second. Usman raised his hand. Let me just unmute Usman. Allow to talk. Yes, Usman. Hi. Carry on.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you.
Please
go ahead.
Yeah, Rahul. Thank you, Rahul.
Yes.
So as per the presentation that you showed, Scrum is like is a way of creating a team. Okay. And then this team will be working on different sprints, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, for example, if there is a project, you can break this project into sprints.
Yes.
So every time you can create different Scrum for different sprint. Is that what I understood? Am I okay?
Look, I'll just tell you, it's not like that. How you need to relate this is, the methodology name is Scrum.
Okay.
Okay. So for example, you have a project. For example, I will just give an example. You want to develop a leave request application. Okay. And that's a project for you. Okay. And internally you decided to execute this project using Agile Scrum methodology or Scrum methodology.
Okay.
So that's a methodology name.
Yeah.
Okay. And to execute that, you need a Scrum team.
Yeah.
So in the Scrum team, you will have a product owner, you will have the developers and testers, maybe a team of 4 to 5.
Yeah.
And this team execute the project in sprints.
Yes. Okay.
So I believe now you are able to relate everything, right?
Yes, I got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So I will go ahead. Okay. So now let us talk about the Scrum framework. So this is very important to understand what all things are included or what are the artifacts included in a Scrum framework. So to start with, you need people or roles associated with the Scrum. Then you need ceremonies. Ceremonies is nothing but some process or some procedures you follow. Okay. I would call it as SOP. We can consider that as an SOP. Then we have artifacts. Artifact is nothing but it can be tools or it can be some ways on how we can execute the project, okay, or Scrum. So let me go to next slide. So let us talk about the roles. To start with, you need a product owner. Okay, so product owner, I would consider as position like a business analyst, similar to a business analyst who knows the complete features to be developed. He knows in and out of the feature set. And he decides when should be the release date, when should the sprint should be released, when should the product should be rolled out. And he also knows about what should be the responsibility and how you can prioritize the feature based on the business value. So this is the product owner. It's very important. Then you need a Scrum Master. So Scrum Master, I would consider a Scrum Master to the role of a project coordinator or a project manager who manages the team or the Scrum team. Okay, so he is responsible to manage the task, make sure the meetings are conducted, the daily meetings are conducted, and also he will make sure whether people are cooperative from both from the client side or from the business side or from the development side. So he manages that orchestration. And at the end, you have the team. So the team, it will be, so as per the standard, it's like a member of 5 to 9 people. But again, it depends upon your requirement. Even I can have a Scrum team of 3 members based on your complexity of the project. And these are cross-functional team. So I cannot keep only developers. I should have cross-functional team. So maybe I will put one developer, maybe I will have one tester, and I can have a BA or a QA analyst, whatever it may be. Again, depends upon the requirement. And members should be full-time available. So since we have a very short time frame for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, the members should be collaborating. So they should be available all the time. Okay, because they have a small part of the deliverables, so they need to focus and they need to put the maximum out of that. And teams are self-organizing, so I would not call them by any title, or they might be like a full stack team. So even the people will have a good knowledge on the designing aspect, the database aspect, okay, and they keeps on self-organizing from that aspect. And at the end, membership should changes only between the sprints. So that's okay. It's from this part. So I hope you got this part, how you can have a Scrum team. So if you have any questions on that, you can ask. Okay, so if there is not any questions, let us go to the next part. So that is on the ceremonies. So I'm not going in detail on all the framework elements, all the important part. So this is the main key for any sprint or the Scrum team. That is the sprint planning. So sprint planning is nothing but you have a product backlog or list of features for the complete application, and the product owner should decide, okay, what should be prioritized or what should be planned to roll out as next feature release. So I will take the same example of leave request application. So in leave request application, the important thing what I would or the HR might say is, so initially he might tell, okay, let us have a system where they can log in and they can apply for a leave. So that's a valid thing. That's very important for any leave request application. So what the product manager or the Scrum team, what they will do, they'll come up with a plan. Okay, my goal is to roll out the application, initial application feature to submit a leave request. So I create all the tasks for that, and I put a time frame 2 weeks. I put all the Scrum teams and put all the condition. I will do all the analysis and I will roll out. So this is nothing but the sprint planning. Okay, so you have a sprint goal. So you can see on the right hand side, you have a sprint goal. So my sprint goal is to have a leave request application to just submit the leave. That is my initial sprint goal. And for that, I need a backlog. Backlog is nothing but what are features or tasks I'm going to execute. So I may put, I need a login screen. I need a screen to authenticate users or mechanism to authenticate. So I can put all those things as part of the sprint backlog. So now let us go to the next part. So this is the most important part, the daily meeting. So as I mentioned, we have a time frame of 2 to 3 weeks. It's very important for us to meet our members on day-to-day basis to understand what's their challenge, what are they going to for the current day, what have they done yesterday, what are their accomplishments yesterday, because it's very important since we have very short time frame, and make the transparency accord to all the team members, so what the people are doing so that they can help each other. So we should have a daily standard meeting for 15 minutes, okay? And it's not for, as I mentioned, it's not for any solving a problem. We are not going to discuss any technical things mainly, or how we're going to solve. No, it's mainly to update the status. What am I going to do for the day, and what I've done yesterday. Okay, so that gives, apart from psychologically, that also give a boost to the all other team members, and also ourselves to work on that particular achievement. And it also helps us to avoid all the unnecessary meetings. So you can have a daily recurring meeting on this daily Scrum. So that is related to daily Scrum. So next part is, so if you have any questions, you can just unmute and ask it. Okay. So next we have a sprint review. So sprint review is what happens is, before rolling out the application or to demo, we need to do a review. So teams, what they do is, by end of the second week, or we do a review session telling, okay, what team has done. Is tell, okay, I have completed the login screen, I have completed the leave request module. Okay, so they talk about their accomplishment, and that also will be a form factor for the demo part to the business. Okay, and actually it should complete that within 2 hours. Okay, it is more like an informal meeting. There is no need of coming up with the presentation or anything. It's more like you can go with an informal kind of presentation, and the whole team will be part of that. So it's very important to have a sprint review. So let me go to the next part. So now let us speak about the product catalog. So we discussed about sprint. Now it's very important to know about the product catalog. The product backlog is nothing but, we call it as catalog also, backlog or catalog. So it's nothing but all the requirements. Okay, so the product catalog contains all the requirements. It can be considered as your deliverables, or it can be considered as your complete requirement from the business. Okay, which may or may not be doable, but however it is, that we can log all this into product backlog. Okay, and what we can do is, once you have the complete backlog, I can prioritize the backlog. So if you need to prioritize, the product owner need to understand, okay, how the business is impacted based on each feature, and what is their urgency. So based on that, I can prioritize the complete feature list by the product owner, and even I can reprioritize it in between. If there is any meetings or anything, what I can do is I can reprioritize it based on the requirement or changes from the business. So I hope you understood the product catalog or backlog part. So this is how the backlog, how you can estimate. So this is just an example how you have the product backlog and how you can estimate that in terms of hours or in terms of days. And you see the backlog item. So you can see the difference here. So I can provide a user story instead of giving the requirement. For example, I will just give an example. So normally you give in the requirement, when we write the requirement document, you provide, okay, it should be integrated with such and such application. So instead of that, I can provide that as a story, which is more meaningful for the business and also more meaningful for us. So what I can do is I can give, I need to have a feature in leave request application showing what is my pending leaves. So from there it's understood you need to integrate that. Okay, but from the description point of view, it would be more easy if you're putting that as in a descriptive manner, or we call it as a user story. So that's more ideal these days. for the product backlog or sprint backlog. Okay, and based on that, I can come up with an estimation. Okay, so I hope you understood this part, right? If you have any questions, you can jumpstart and ask me before going to the next part.
If you have any question on your chat window, you have a button, raise your hand, and I can give you
Yes.
allow to talk option over here.
All right.
So I think so far so good, Rahul.
Yes,
Carry on.
yes. So now let us go to the next part in terms of the scalability. Okay. Look, this is the most important part. Okay. So I would consider, I can understand what's the strength of the team. So for example, if I have an application which needs to be developed in 6 months, okay, and what I do, I put some resource, I allocate some resource, and I even do not know how this resource may perform. If he is a low performer, I do not understand how the application will look at the end, or whether the 6-month application will be prolonged to 10 months. I'm not sure about all those things. So this approach allows the scalability. So what happens within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I can understand the velocity of the team, how capable they are, or whether I need to include more members or I need to change the team. So I get all those ideas. Based on that, I can scalable my team at any point of time. It can be by team to team, or it can be by including or removing the team members. And also there are many factors as part of that, like type of application, the team size, the project duration, dispersion. So all those factors can lead or create a velocity for me to make a decision how scalable the team should be. So that's one of the major consideration. So what I will do is, now I will just jump to the demo part, okay, for further discussion, because I felt that's more relevant. So I believe now you understood the concept, and now let us see how practical it is to develop, or how can we develop some application using the Scrum approach. So before going to demo, if you have any questions, you can just raise the hand, or you can put it on the chat. So now let us see how practical when it comes to executing a project using Scrum. Okay. So here we'll take an example of developing for example, a leave request application. That would be the a basic example what I can provide. So here I can see. So now let us see. You can see a no sprint section. So that is nothing but your product catalog from the business telling, okay, what should be features or what they need as their requirement to be fulfilled by the development team. So as a HR, what I would say is I need to know leave balance. Then I may put, there should be a new form to submit leave request. Then I have a session user can log in from mobile. That can be another part. Now next HR might tell, okay, I need manager should be notified in case a request is submitted. Okay, so this is another part, and I put manager needs a approval screen. Then he may put manager needs to approve the request from email. Maybe it might be a wish list for him. Okay. Then he may tell dashboard to view all pending request. Okay, so you can see this is how you're gonna create your requirement. It should be moreover like a user story rather than going into too technical. So it should be more meaningful. So that will be dashboard to view all pending requests, or even I can add one more part. View sent monthly
I
leaves.
think there's a question from Mr. Mahesh. So Mahesh,
Yeah.
go on.
Hi, everyone, first of all, and hope everyone is safe. And thank you, Nazir, for arranging this webinar too.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Mahesh.
Yeah, the question was here. You are basically you're saying that you are putting certain tasks and listing certain tasks.
Yes.
I assume that this is during the requirement gathering stage. And I just want to understand how you correlate this with, let's say, the process workflow that a typical business may have. Typically, you know, the HR or someone may have a workflow, right? So how do you correlate and how do you do that with this sort of thing where you estimate the, let's say you are taking a workflow and you want to split it up into sprints. So is that, basically it's your team and your job to do that, right? And that's how you do it.
Yes. Okay, so you mean from a workflow point of view, how can we achieve this using a sprint?
Yes. Taking a workflow and how do you cut it up into sprints, and also, you know, putting the new tasks from that, you know, how do you do it? And just to understand how, you know, how it can be linked with the typical.
Okay. So from the workflow part, suppose I'm having a workflow. So a workflow can be considered as a complete life cycle, a approval life cycle. And I assume that workflow or the development of that may take 2-3 months. I'm assuming that. Okay. And how we can do is we can split this into sprints. For example, for any workflow or any workflow requirement or any e-form automation, there will be a form to capture data in terms of, for example, I should integrate it with some other system, or there should be some place where user can log in to have a dashboard and form submission. So I can make that as a story. Okay. So what I will do is that story will be, I will just define that story as like this. Okay, a user coming to a particular approval system and he can see his dashboard, a simple dashboard, and he need to submit a request. I don't know, once he submit, I don't know what happens. That will be a different user story, right? Okay, so I can put that under one sprint. And now the business has an objective now. Okay, the business, or I tell business, okay, sprint one, you have this as a deliverable. And the business set its mind, okay, I'm going to get this feature in sprint one. At least I can submit the report. Okay, so this is how you can. So again, that depends upon how.
So it's basically, you're saying it's a reasonable quantum of deliverable that you can work with the business users to sort of crystallize at an early stage.
Yes, that's right. And again, I cannot tell within sprint one, I cannot even go live maybe I can combine sprint one and sprint two as one release. Getting it right? Maybe that approval session is in sprint two.
Yeah, it could be. I'm just saying, so basically you would sort of chop it down into a reasonable amount of quantum of work, which can be delivered as a reasonable deliverable.
Exactly.
And so that you do that early stage rather than sit on it and then come back and tell us something which may not be acceptable for us.
Yes.
Or we might be surprised by it.
That's the reason within 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, even you're doing the testing from the business end. Okay. Rather than going maybe to the 3rd month and start the testing.
So that means basically there would be quite a bit of involvement between the client and yourselves, essentially,
exactly.
To ensure that the product is ultimately meeting our requirements.
Requirement by the end of the call. Yes. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Mesh. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, okay. So now let us see. So I have created my backlog now. So I can see the list of my
Rahul,
backlogs.
there are a couple of more questions. The next question is from Fakhruddin. Yeah, Fakhruddin, I have unmuted you. Carry on.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Rahul and Mahesh, just to clarify the previous point, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
carry on.
Yes.
Okay. Just to clarify the previous point, Mahesh, each Scrum, each sprint is considered as a viable product. Normally, when we get a new project, what we do, like instead of going for a normal waterfall methodology, develop everything, we find out the KRA, KPA, key resource factor, and we will try to develop those main component only. And normally for each sprint will be a viable product. We don't keep the deliverable if we are not able to go for, we don't do the development if we're not able to go for the production rollout. So we will try to minimize the product. We will try to cut down the project into smaller part. We try to deliver each deliverable in a phased manner. And second thing, the business analyst can play a role on behalf of business analyst will play a role of Scrum Master or the product owner. He will be liaising with the business to get all the requirement, and he will be the single point of contact to discuss with the development owner, and he will give the priority. He will take the things from the backlog, and he will discuss with the development company. He will prioritize the activities.
Yes.
Thank you, Fakhruddin, for the explanation.
Thanks. Thanks for
Thank you
calling.
so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Appreciate it. So, okay. So, okay. So we are discussing about now on the sprint plan. So as you saw, we have created a backlog for leave request application. Now the next part will be how you can prioritize. So here the product owner or the business analyst plays a major role. How you can prioritize this. So here I can see I just start filling up with all my ideas, and maybe the first thing what I need, maybe I just prioritize. Okay, I need a login. Sorry, not through mobile. Let me see. Okay, so I'll just change this name. Just give me a second. So just user can login. I'll just put user can login. Then I need a place where at least the minimum viable part is I need to apply for a leave. That's a basic part. So I'll just prioritize this. Okay, need to know leave balance. Sorry, not that one. I need to apply the leave. Okay, need new form to submit a leave. So that's my priority. Then I may require manager needs to be notified if I request for a leave. So this is how I can prioritize my backlog based on the most needed feature from the business. Now I need to execute this. For that, I'm going to execute this project in sprint. So what I'm going to do is I will go to manage. So I'm just giving an example. I'm going to execute this project in 2 sprint. Okay. And in sprint 1, what I'm going to do is, okay, I'm going to give sprint 1. So just let me name that sprint 1, maybe to give more idea. User submission or user access, maybe a portal for user access to submit the leave. Okay, and I'll put this what's the duration. That again depends upon my requirement. Maybe it can be 1 week. That depends upon the velocity of your team. If you have a good team and you know the capability, I may keep it as 1 week. And in next sprint, maybe I may go with dashboard. So I'm just giving the name for you to understand. Dashboard, then maybe integration. Okay. And what I do is I'll just give when I'm going to start this, okay, and all other details within the planning part. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this under this sprint one. So as part of sprint one, I need to have a user can log in, user should be able to submit, and manager needs to be notified. Okay, and maybe I'll put needs an approval screen also. Okay, and maybe the rest all part I may integration need to know the deep. I may do as part of the next sprint. So at least if you look at this plan, at least by end of sprint one, what happens? The manager will be able, or I can roll out this application. At least user can start submitting the leave, and the managers can approve that. So it's something a viable product for me from my company point of view. So this is the planning part. This is how the project owners or the business analysts, they sit with the business and how they come up with the plan. Now we're going to start with the execution part. So for that, I may go to one of my sprint. And this is the execution. It's like a task or a view, which is available in most of the tools like Microsoft Planner, Asana. You can use any tools for that. And what I'm going to do is maybe I may start with user login. What's going to be do next? Maybe I put that under progress. This is how you manage your task. The next part will be this new form submission. And I can use all the resource assignment. That again depends upon the your tool. So here it can be the person whom the should be assigned, and all those features I can put that. And once my task is done, I may move to the completed part. So this, from a Scrum Master point of view, the Scrum Master have a dashboard where they can look into all the tasks, what is progressing now, and that can be one valid reason on during the daily meeting, what should be discussed, what planned, or what they're going to do for the day. So this is like a dashboard for the Scrum Master in terms of execution. And maybe I put it under task, and when it is done, it's completed. Okay, and once I complete all this, okay, so this allows me to complete the sprint, and maybe I can start testing. So that also I can add that as a user story to start the testing by the QA or to roll out. So once it is done, what I will do is I go in with the next sprint. Okay, so this is how it's managed. So this is just an overview.
So Rahul, the tool what you are using is Microsoft Project Professional, which is a licensed version of the product.
Yes.
Right? And usually at a customer place, who's responsible to use this? Is there a business analyst, or is there a specific role you're going to assign if we are doing the project for the customer?
Whoever part of the Scrum team, also from the business, it should be transparent. So they also should be given access to the whatever task tool which we are using. So that they can view the progress. We have a time span of 2 weeks to 3 weeks. So people are more focused on the delivery, and there may not be any time for the project manager to send a project status report or anything. Instead, we need to give the access so that they can look at any point of time.
So in the previous demo, when you design in the task, you also need to work with the customer, or from the customer side, a couple of guys also need to work with you, and you both together write down all the tasks here, and then you push it to each sprint.
Right. Good. So I put on that's how it's done.
Good. Farooq, you have a question? Yes, go ahead.
So this dashboard which Rahul has just shown is a sprint board.
It's a sprint board, yes.
In the Project Professional also, there is a view you can set to have the WBS, work breakdown structure and activities view also. So at the end of the sprint, once you've done the sprint, you can basically get the sprint modules But
So
this is the view we basically, yeah, we need to work on this WBS and create the activities for each
yes,
sprint.
yes. Because from the project manager point of view, or if a PMO is accessing, they might be more interested in to view the breakdown structure in a more detailed way. And from the team's execution part, they can use the sprint view or the Scrum view to execute the project.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Farooq.
Yeah.
There is another question there. Sprint once planned for 3 weeks, and if some reasons there's a spillover, how it can be planned, please? So Rahul, a question on in Q&A.
Okay, you mean suppose, okay. Okay, I understood that part. So for example, you have a sprint 1, and what we do is for each sprint, there is a goal for each sprint. Maybe the goal for current sprint for this leave request application is the 2 things what we have told. But suppose if there is any other change, suppose like a change request or something came in between, that will not be part of current sprint. For that, you need to execute another sprint for this change that has its own goal. Okay, the goal might be for as an enhancement. So that is how this is managed. I hope it answered your question.
Great. Are there more questions? By the way, this is the Q&A time. We are now 4 minutes away from wrapping up this webinar. So if there are more questions, please feel free. I think Fakhruddin, I think raised. Yeah, Fakhruddin.
Burn chart diagrams to monitor and manage that sprint activities from the management perspective.
Okay. So for that, what you need to do is, look, you have, as you mentioned, I can create the task sheet, okay, with the complete list of tasks, and I can also build all my relationship here if you have any critical path and all those things. And I can use this same to view the Gantt chart. Give me a second. Let me look for tracking Gantt chart. So you see here, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't have the correct data, I need to have a start date and end date for all the activities. And this can be viewed in a Gantt chart view. So this depends upon tool to tool. In Microsoft project, this is how you can view it. But if you're using any other tools like Asana or Write, it's also possible.
And the second question, how is it different from Microsoft to Jira tool? In Jira also like fully supporting Agile methodology.
Okay, look, how it is related Microsoft project with Jira tool is, look, we need to understand if you have a PMO office, a project management office, they are looking from a wider perspective. There might be 50 projects, okay? And when they come, they need to see the critical paths of each task, and they need to view the complete overall progress. They want to do some what if analysis. If something happens here, how it is affected. So for that, you need a tool like Microsoft Project or Project Server. Okay, and from tools like Jira or some other tools that mainly focus on, you see this screen, right? On the task assignment and to track the task to have the dashboard. So how you can compare this is the Microsoft project from a wider perspective to have the workflows for project management. And tools like Asana or Write is mainly for the execution part. And even we have scenarios where I can integrate Microsoft Project Server with tools like Jira or Write so that the task assignments can be managed from these tools, and the PMO office can use Microsoft Project Management or Project Server to view the complete project at a wide perspective.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, the next question, Rahul, what is retrospect meetings? Can you explain?
As we are mentioning, the Scrum team we have a limited time frame for a delivery. It's like 2 to 3 weeks, and it should be more in an informal way. Okay, it's not like you have a presentation. Okay, and so what we meant is the meeting should be more like in a progressive approach rather than having a weekly meeting or to have a meeting with the stakeholders at a predefined time. We are not talking about that. Our changes or our response should be fast. So the meetings will be daily, or maybe I can have a meeting with the two members. Okay, so we need to think from that perspective in terms of the meetings, or if you need to have any discussion with the team members. So that's what it meant. It's more like a concept wise.
Next question, which methodology is suitable if project is small, medium or large, waterfall, agile or scrum?
Okay. So one second.
The project is small to medium or large. So is there a categorization for small project, use waterfall, medium, agile or scrum, and large one, of course, agile? Is there any?
Look, these days, if we look into current product development, take example of any product development companies, they're rolling out features in span of days. Okay, and we are not talking about waterfall methodology these days. So it's nowhere related to these days. Okay, if you're talking about waterfall, and based on the experience, there are many. So that's the reason we are coming up with new practices like Agile, Scrum, so that we have that advantages over the traditional waterfall method. So what we would recommend, or as per the industry standard, always it's recommended to go with Agile or Scrum practices, even it is a small project, short-term projects, or if it is a big-term projects. Try to follow using Agile or Scrum methodology for a best result.
Great. No more questions. I think we are right on time.
Yes.
So thanks, Rahul, for taking all the Q&A, and thanks for the wonderful presentation. So I once again like to thank all of you for joining us today. If you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can write to us. So once again, thank you all for joining, and I wish you all the best, and stay safe and stay at home. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.